Ladies and gentlemen, welcome officially to Everything Co-Living Q&A. Pleasure to have you here. Today we have something actually that's quite simple. We're going to share some updates with you. And then we took all of you guys, submitted your questions. So we had this list of all of the questions. So we chose the questions that most people ask themselves. And we're going to dig deeper into them today. And you're also going to have the chance to share your own questions. So please put them in the chat and we'll pick them up during the conversation and as the conversation goes. Let's kick it off. For those who don't know ourselves, let's introduce ourselves quickly. My name is Perdrix. I'm one of the founders of Out of Co, and also next to my passion for co-living and especially experience building and co-living, I'm also the president at Coliv, the Global Association of Co-living Professionals, and I love writing. So I've been writing a few books. I would love, Mayank, for you to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Mayank. I'm also one of the co-founders at Out of Co. Other than that, I've spent last decade in co-living, running my own co-living, and then building my own property management software. I've also headed marketing for Coliv. I'm here to help all of you with whatever I've learned along the way. Let's get it started, Dee.
Let's get it started. So just for those of you who don't know, like our mission here really is to help co-living entrepreneurs to create housing space of tomorrow. We ourselves were co-living entrepreneurs in the past. We know like how hard it is to tackle that journey, but nowadays we have like some very accomplished entrepreneurs that have been succeeding creating co-living spaces. And there's a lot of good practices and we are here to share them with you. In the past, we've worked with more than 70 co-living companies as consultants and advisors. And that's why we're really excited to now like switch and create like more products and also resources for everybody out there who's creating and working on their co-living. So for those of you who haven't had a look maybe at our website, but there's a lot of resources there, such as the Out of Co-Living book, our newsletter called Everything Co-Living, our webinars, and also some upcoming programs that we're going to share with you in a second. Mayank, is there anything that let's not talk about the book because I think we've talked about it a lot, but like, is there anything you want to share maybe about Everything Co-Living?
Right. So Everything Co-Living is a newsletter that we started. It's currently read by around 10,000 people around the world. All of these are co-living stakeholders, right from investors to operators and even the service providers. We send it out weekly. And it covers everything co-living, as the name suggests, along with our commentary on what's happening in the industry. So if you want to stay up to date, and if you are not yet subscribed to it, please do go to our website and subscribe to it. It'll be a great value add as part of the weekly readings that you may have.
Yes, and we recently had we crossed the 9,600 co-living professionals, which is quite crazy because I think we imagine when like there's going to be 20,000 co-living professionals in the scene. So we're really really honored. And if you have any suggestions on how we can also improve this and what type of news you want to have, please let us know. Just write us an email because we want to continuously improve it. So the one thing that we really want to talk about today, or just present to you, is that we're launching 2 programs upcoming year. And we did that based on all of the feedback that we've had in our recent chats in the last months. And basically, we're going to create 2 cohorts of like around 10 co-living entrepreneurs that are going to join to incubate or accelerate their business. And so basically, the incubator program is a 3-month program to build your concept, finish your pitch deck, and then launch your concept at the Out of Co demo day, while the co-living accelerator really is about scaling. It's bringing your concept from maybe 30 or 50 beds to like 400, and then you're going to have to change your tech stack, your marketing, your team structure. And through these 2 programs, we are going to create masterminds where co-living entrepreneurs can share knowledge, help one another. We're going to create office hours with mentors, with former co-living entrepreneurs, and we are also going to create a few other things, including we're going to host a 2-day in-person mastermind in France in March that you can also attend. And we're going to host a demo day where we're going to promote all of the projects to the co-living industry. So we're pretty excited about this because it's going to allow like a few of you to really like kickstart or like to grow your business and your brand at the same time. Yes, I think that's all we wanted to share with you. If you're interested, you can just like follow the links and apply online. Applications are open until end of December, and we're really, really curious to see who wants to join this journey. All right. And then finally, before we go into everything co-living, we just wanted to announce you there's this event called Housing Matters that's really relevant to the co-living industry. Last year it was called the MIPIM Co-Live Summit, and this year it's called Housing Matter, and it happens at MIPIM, at the largest real estate conference in Europe. And it's going to attract for a whole day like co-living investors. Like here you can see a breakdown of last year, like investors, but also real estate, like business services. A lot of operators, co-living operators are going to be there. And this event is being organized by MIPIM and Coliv, which we're also part of. And that's going to be across the entire week, a lot of events happening. So the Housing Matters events on Monday, but on Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, there's going to be a lot of like Coliv events. And we at Out of Co, we're going to organize our mastermind the weekend just before that. So that's why it's also relevant, because if some of you are thinking of coming to France, coming to this event, it would actually really help you to get in touch with a lot of people from the co-living network. And there's a lot of events happening in that entire week. We're gonna send out some more info after that so that you can have a look and check it out. And the event is in Cannes in France. All right. Mayank, anything you want to add?
I think if you can stop sharing the screen for a minute, I would like to take a screenshot of all the people who are there. If all of you can just switch off your cameras, I would love to take a screenshot for all of us who are here. That'll be great, so that we can make more people jealous and get them to these webinars in future. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for switching on your cameras. Give me 1 sec. Here we go. Here we go. Give me 1 sec. Yes. Yes, here we go. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Guy. Now you can start that again.
Amazing. Like, do you have this thing too, when you like smile for like 20 seconds, you just become happier, right? Maybe we should do this after every 5 minutes. All right. Yeah. So let me reshare my screen. And then let's go. All right. Perfect. So really excited. A lot of things that we want to talk about today. So we took the most asked questions and we took them per category. So we're gonna have 4 categories today. We're gonna talk about market and concepts. Then we're gonna go into like business models. Then we're gonna go into design and community, and then we're gonna go into marketing and technology. So we're gonna take a few questions that have been the most asked, and then please add the questions, the relevant questions to that category in the chat so we can talk about it too. Let's go. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
Vamos. So a few of the top questions. Mayank, you recently wrote a LinkedIn post about this. Like, what would you say are the top 5 trends in co-living?
Yeah, so this was my kind of musing today morning, where I started thinking about, okay, what has been brewing in the co-living world? What are the top trends that are brewing up? And I wrote few of them. So one of them was about diverse typology and expanding footprint of co-living. If you look at 2 years back, we were talking about a lot more urban co-living in urban centers, trying to make places for people in central business districts. But if you fast forward it to today, you will find a lot more people who are doing different types of co-living, right? In rural areas, in coastal regions, in urban areas. And that's the expanding footprint of co-living that you will see, and that we will continue to see in 2024. Another very interesting thing that's happening is the work-life integration, as we call it, right? With remote work taking precedence, a lot more people are now looking at co-living and co-working together in probably rural areas or in offbeat places or in tourist places to spend slow traveling, to spend more time there. So that's another very interesting thing which is kind of taking precedence, and there are undercurrents of it growing very, very fast within the co-living sector. The third thing is the like the multi-demographic or the niches which are getting developed. So there's a lot
Mm.
of niches like nomad co-living. We saw nomad co-living. We saw um, remote workers co-living. We saw women co-living. We saw single parent co-living houses. So or creator co-living houses, entrepreneur co-living houses. Like these are the niches we are starting to see, and they are growing pretty well in different parts of the world. So that is a trend that I see continued, which will continue to grow next year as well. The fourth one is about sustainability and technology. I think we have spoken about it enough, but I think that remains something that will keep catching up. We will have a lot more sustainability in picture, and the smart technology will play a huge role because now co-living has spent enough time within of being right. Last decade, we have been speaking about co-living. So now a lot of products which are now specifically built for co-living industry, like products like Mosler or CoLive HQ or Res Harmonics, these are developed specifically for co-living companies, different use cases. But I see more of these products coming up and the recent one that we saw, Guy, was Rayon, which was about the interior designs within the co-living sector, right? So that's one. And the last thing that from my side is about the membership model. I see a huge potential in membership model, in the co-living membership model. If you want
Kind
to
of
take a
like
look at it, Gravity
kind of
Co-living
like social
recently
clubs,
launched it.
right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that will take again a lot of precedence because people will start monetizing their community in the next year. Till now, it was more about building right communities, and now it'll be about building up memberships based on that and then monetizing it. Like that, I see is a trend which will definitely kind of grow in the next year. So uh, over to Yugi. Anything that you would want to add to this?
Yes, like actually, I just posted in the chat. So, like for example, like the membership model, I really like it because one of my favorite examples is Charisma in Barcelona. I just put the link in the chat, and it's run by a co-living operator that realized that the true value lied in the community. And now the model is very simple. You can pay 40 euros a month, or you pay for the events, and or you pay 150 euros a month, and you have access to the space all day as a work and social space. Um, and and it's very simple. And if you have around like 50 members, which is relatively easy to get after a few months, then you break even less. And I think it's a great value add because especially if you already have a co-living and you're creating events and you're creating value, then you can have people outside who don't live in a co-living also join these. Another co-living that used to do it is called Van, and they did it at a neighborhood scale. They would even take like third hubs, meaning like spaces that wouldn't be part of their residential building, to turn them into members hubs. And next to that, run co-living. So super aligned with you, Mayank. And I would say like maybe two more trends. One is I was from a business model perspective, we're seeing a lot of operators that really choose one direction of like asset light versus asset heavy. And a lot are choosing actually asset light, especially in urban areas, and really focusing on building a sustainable operations company and partnering up with a real estate developer, real estate owner. And the second one is, I think there's a big trend also in terms of variety of products. Meaning, for example, where you are, Mayank, there's a lot of like shared living in India, right? Like people, the majority of products is two people in a room. While in Europe, we're seeing a trend of like micro units. And here it's really about giving people more privacy, like even up to 30, 35 square meters, but having all of these shared spaces also in a building. So that's what I would add as trends. And maybe one last one, which is corporate. I've been surprisingly, so it's been like 2-3 years that a few co-living operator mentioned they want to partner up with corporates, with big tech providers who basically need housing for employees. And I haven't really seen it coming. And it was only in the last 6 months. I've been talking to like 5 to 10 operators that are now actively doing it, where they would reserve, for example, like 5, 10, depending on their projects, up to 25 units for a company. And there's more and more companies that are also building their own hubs, which is very interesting. So I'm really curious to see where this trend is going, because it seems like a lot of people are being activated around it right now. Mayank, what would you say
Interesting.
are the main KPIs? Earlier you mentioned a few.
Right. So I think the most intuitive ones for us will be occupancy percentage, the renewal rate or the churn rate, however you want to calculate it. If you want to talk about resident experience, the net promoter score or customer satisfaction score, again, however you want to like measure it. Profitability, definitely, or the percentage of referrals across overall bookings that comes to you. That always tells you about the brand awareness and how strong the brand is. And the last thing is will be gross margin and net margin, because that helps you define the profitability and EBITDA profitability. And it also depends on the business model that you're working with. If it's your own space, then it becomes a little bit different. But if it's on a master lease model or a or like management model, then the KPIs differs a bit. But these are probably the overall major KPIs for people or for co-living who do short stays. I think RevPAR or ADR, the average day revenue, I think becomes important because they start measuring occupancy on a daily basis rather than a long term. For long term, it is more like it's a bit different. So I think those are the major KPIs that I would consider that every co-living operator should measure. Do you have anything to add there,
No,
Gee?
I think you mentioned it all. Occupancy rate. I think renewal, yeah, the churn rate is interesting. And here I think that's tied to the next question, like which key services can improve the resident stay. And like Mayank and I, we had a discussion earlier, and we realized that it's not so much about the services. Like services will make people stay because it gives them the basics, right? It gives them like services are stuff like laundry. You need a laundry in your place. You do need a space potentially where people can make food. But like even if you have a lot of different services, like imagine you have a sauna and a spa, etc., it can make people stay, but what's going to make them really stay is whether they bond to the place and to the people. And so one of the main KPIs, for example, that Common was following was the amount of people, the amount of new friends somebody made after 2 weeks. Because the Brad, who was the founder at the time, he said that if within 2 weeks people make 2 or more friends, there's a 50% higher chance they're going to stay. So that's, I think at the end, so it's not about the services that are going to improve your resident stay. It's more going to be about what are the touch points, or like what are the opportunities you're creating in that journey for people to actually bond with others. And for example, what you can do is in the first 2 weeks, you can do welcoming dinners, you can do personal introductions, you can have like personal check-ins, and so that you optimize for that connection at the very beginning, and that's going to help people to stay long term. Mayank, what
Right.
would you
So
add?
so one more thing that I would like to add here is, see, amenities or services can make people uh, cannot make people love your product, right? It's something that they expect. Like it's the basic kind of expectations that they have from a co-living operator. But what can like blow their mind, or what can make them stay longer, is what Guy said. Is it's about that feeling of uh, of something that is their own, right? And if we are able to build that feeling in the first 2 weeks by managing various touch points, I think that can make the whole lot of difference. Right, Guy. So moving on to the next question, which niches are more interesting to you? Which niches are you seeing gathering a lot more response from the market, from the investors?
Okay, I'd say like top 3 of what people have been kind of talking in terms in the last 6 months in terms of like new ideas and new products. Number 1, young seniors. There's actually quite a few co-living operators that before focused on young professionals and now switching to like houses for seniors. And that's interesting because around 2-3 years ago, like the same operators were a bit scared they would be like too complicated to operate. And it seems like they had like some very different experiences. And And there might be, I think, like some benefits, including people being very responsible, right, compared to like if you host students or young professionals. So it could be actually an audience that makes a lot of sense. And then the second one is, I think there was a trend around digital nomads around 2 or 3 years ago that actually stays until now. There's a lot of digital nomad spaces, which is great. Then the second trend was remote workers, right? Was opening it up a bit, especially during the pandemic. And now the third trend is corporate employees. And I think especially for like urban cities, there's a lot of co-living operators that are going to focus on giving services to companies to host employees for 3 to 6 months. Yeah, really believe in that. Mayank, what are yours?
So Danny has just asked, what is the target age for active seniors, right? So Danny, what we have seen when we have spoken to these people who are actively running like senior living spaces, and they're now evolving into co-living spaces, they start targeting people at 55 plus, right? Because they think that that's the right target age for them to give experience of such kind of facilities, because that's the time when they start planning for, okay, what to do after retirement, how do we want to tackle it, what kind of life they envision after 60, right? So 55 plus is kind of a target age for active seniors, for these co-living players that they are currently using. So I'm not saying that that's the only thing that you can do, but that's what the market is targeting right now.
Yes, and maybe we can
Right.
take the other question also from Lorik. Mayank, do you have any thoughts on that?
Right. So I'll just read the question for everybody. What should be included in the capital expenditure for co-living? See, it depends on geography. It depends on the region that you're coming from. I'll just take an example of India, because I've run a co-living business here in India for more than 6 years. Here, when we were taking master leases, the owner will give us just the space, right? And they, with the fixtures and fittings and basic amenities like lightings and like fans and stuff. That's all. Any interior work that we had to do to retrofit the space to make common areas accessible was on us, right? That's how the agreements were. But I know operators in Europe, in US, who have worked with owners also to get all of this done, but then they take the higher share of rentals, like our higher fixed rentals, right? So it all depends on what kind of model you want to work with, and what's like the owner or the landlord ready to do. So that depends. Or and later, Lorik, I can send you a detailed list of things that we were putting in there, because if I start listing it down, it'll take a lot of time. But I can send you those the list later on.
Yes, and maybe just to respond, Danny, and finish off here with market and concept. It's actually personally, I don't have an answer. My gut feeling would be yes, right, or vice versa. Like I know that there's certain concept where you have seniors living, for example, with students. I'm sure there's a few multi-generational co-living spaces, but actually I don't have an answer.
So I spoke to Guy. I spoke to one co-living company. I'm not. I can tell you the name later, Danny. But what they have done. So they have like a building with 6 floors. First 2 floors are for seniors. Rest 4 are for students. And then they have a program where these kind of they make sure that there are events and programs which get people like the students and the seniors together. So the response from seniors was also great, because they get to talk and understand the younger generation, and the younger generation had access or people to take guidance from, and they could go and talk to anybody. So there's this one co-living space which is already doing that, and I think there is a readiness among people to now, and they're more open to stay, both of them, vice versa, because and I would not call it a trend. It can be very good in few micro markets, but we'll have to see how it evolves. But there is definitely a product which exists in the US market which is doing this.
Amazing. All right, let's go into the next and second section. community design, that's great, because somebody just asked, Santiago just asked about strategies for community building. So maybe we can start with that, right? So Santiago just asked, like, what are the best strategies you can implement so that people actually connect, or to make sure the members are actively interacting with one another and creating new relationships. So I'm going to list like a few. So here, and the idea is not to do all of them. The idea would be that, for example, for your co-living company, you're going to choose 3 or 4 of them and do them really well, and just make sure they're really part of your process. So a couple of things you can do is like, one is like, of course, having like some sort of like group chat, such as, for example, on WhatsApp with all of the members, introducing the person when they arrive to that group. For example, taking a picture, doing a small interview and introducing like, hey, this is Santiago arriving here in the space, blah, 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 describing the person. A third thing you can do is introducing the new arrival to the team, or even sometimes it's the founders themselves who introduce themselves to the person, just welcoming, right? So this can be an additional step. What's also really cool is to introduce new tenants before they arrive to their future roommates, or to like one roommate. And there's even a co-living space, urban campus, they have a godfather and godmother model. So when you arrive, you're assigned a person that's been there for a while, and that has been integrated into the community, and who's going to be kind of the door opener, right, for you in your journey, who's going to take care that you're going to be part of the community and introduce to their friends. So that also works. And then there's group activities that you can do, including weekly welcoming events. There's activities that you can do around idea sharing. So or what we call relationship health. So for example, if once a month you create an event where people are able to share their ideas and frustrations, potentially also able to make decisions. For example, you give a communal budget that people can make a decision on. That helps to create also engagement and people to feel heard and to be able to like propose the ideas. And then the last thing that I would add is, and I think that's the most important one, it's understanding your residents' desires and interests. And you can do simple forms like surveys. And then from there, you're going to understand what do they actually want. From there, you can create events that are relevant to that. And the second one is in person. And I think it's really important that you talk to your new members, have a check-in after a week, see how they are, and create a personal relationship with them. Voila, these were an extensive list. I think there's more that you can also find in the Art of Co-Living book. I think it's chapter 6 or 7.
Guy, I would like to add one thing there for the larger co-living projects, right? And I think you can also speak about the Node Creator program, Guy, here. But having a resident community program for larger co-living spaces makes a lot of sense, because now when somebody who is living in the community becomes a part-time community manager, they understand the pulse of the people living more and better, and they can help structure the communications, the interactions, and foster the interactions a lot better. That's what I've personally seen. So yeah, that's something that we can also try.
Yes, and so actually maybe to that, let's have a look at design and how design can improve community interactions, because there's a lot of things you can do. So what I want to share with you right now is one of the frameworks from the Art of Co-Living book on actually design and architecture. And what the way you have to see this is basically like when I wrote the Art of Co-Living, I interviewed around 50 to 100 co-living founders around the notion of like architecture and design. And then there were like some universal principles that basically came out, right? So for example, one of them is think in terms of cluster sizes. What does it mean? It means that a community can be only as strong as small it is, meaning like the wider the community is, the less people will be actually connected to others. And so what you need to do is when you have large communities of, let's say, 100, 150 people, is to think in terms of smaller clusters. How can you recreate smaller communities of 10, 15, 30 people, whether it's through architecture or maybe through interest-based events, right? So that's what you want to recreate. So here in terms of architecture, what's really important is, especially when you do larger buildings, how can I create these spaces for like smaller groups to actually bond? Another thing is, for example, solve human problems by design. And I think that's very important, and that's the notion of, in co-living, you have a lot of what's called the tragedy of the commons. Stuff like somebody leaves an empty, like a dirty dish in a sink, and then somebody else is going to do that just because another one was already lying down there, and then a third one is coming, and after a week the sink is completely dirty, right? So, and that ultimately, it's not like one person's fault, it's everybody's fault, but it just happened because there's no collective oversight. So one thing that you can do is, and that's really common when you have like group and shared kitchens, making sure that in each fridge, everybody has their own container, making sure that everybody has their own container also for like dry food, making sure that everybody has their own storage space in the common area, so in the workspace. Or other things that can also be done is like even installing, that's what a few operators do. I'm not a big fan of the practice, but installing, like, for example, fake cameras above the sinks, just so that people like think that like they shouldn't be the one responsible for not doing the dishes. So these are like a few examples of how to solve humans by design, and I think there's a lot of more examples that you can have a look at in the Art of Co-Living book in the chapter.
And Guy, very interesting conversation, very interesting point that you mentioned right now, that one is definitely about engagement and one is about the in-house behavior, right? And community is built by both. You have to make sure that enough interactions are happening. And while that's happening, the behavior in a co-living space has to evolve in a certain way. And both are the part of community design that can happen through various aspects that you spoke about. Very interesting.
Yes. So I think second question, let's tackle it really quick. Should the rooms be designed for single occupancy or dual? Is there a place for larger 2-bedroom rooms or shared living? And I think, Mayank, we had a chat, and it's like the answer is actually yes, right? And there's like now more and more concepts that are doing this. One of our favorite ones, and we showed it in the last one, but it's called Kubul. It's a co-living space that has already 4 locations in France and opening 4 more. Every time it's around 120 units, 80 to 120 units, and then another 1,000 square meters of co-working. And here they have the units that are around 25, 30 square meters. And they also have kitchen and micro studio. And so it's a really cool concept. And I think there's more and more developers that are going to offer also slightly larger units, maybe like 35 to 40, and compensate that, of course, with smaller ones of 20. So yes, there's a market to larger units, and especially to thinking in terms of room as for 2 people.
And it also depends on Guy. It also depends on the legality of things, because in some regions, having 2 people not related by blood in a single room is not legal. So I think we'll have to look at that for region by region. But let's say for Asia and Southeast Asia, China, Hong Kong, if you look at Malaysia, Indonesia, this is a very common practice of having 2 people who are unrelated sharing a room, because that makes it really, really affordable for an end user. And that is one of the things that now co-living is like co-living in the West is embracing, is to now make it more and more affordable for people. And also, this is kind of a solution for the social housing problem that we have seen across in different regions in the West. But yeah, it will take its sweet time in order for the legal aspects to become more and more clearer on this. But the demand is definitely increasing because it provides that affordability and access to community, and it's best of both worlds. Right. Yeah. So the next one is it possible to build a community if the members are flying in and out every few weeks? Guy, you had an example.
Yeah, I had an example. Like, so I think it's possible, but it just requires more care, right? So for example, for a lot of co-living spaces that are optimized for nomads, like for example, Sun and Co, they have a really strong community vibe and community feeling, even though a lot of people stay, I think on average, only 3 weeks. So it's possible to create it, but it requires just more engagement, a community manager that's really on site, a lot of like, ideally like a niche, right, in terms of interest, so that you can create like hyper-specific events, and really a differentiated concept. It's easier if people stay longer, and I think that if you stay less than a week, it's really hard to bond with people that are living in the space. And also for people who are staying longer, they don't have the incentive to then bond with you because you're just there for a couple of days. Would you say something else, Mayank?
So one other interesting like trend that I've seen is if you have the element of local community or local people participating in that community, people who are coming in flying, they feel uh, more invested in that community because they now get access to all the local people who are part of that community, and that can help you build better cohesiveness in the spaces which are very short term in nature. And that's what Nomadgaon did with their co-living spaces, where they integrated local community. So they have, so just for an example, right? They have when they have board game nights, it's not only for people who are staying in the space, it's also for people who are already like not staying in the place but in the vicinity, and they know that every Thursday night is a game night or a board game night, and it's like a human library night, and they would come just interact with people, speak with people, like, and having curated such kind of community makes it really really interesting for the people who are coming in because they get access to locals. So yeah, that's just something that I wanted to add.
Yes. I would love to maybe one thing, like Ariane had asked in the chat, like we have 600 tenants throughout Brussels. Engagement is not the easiest thing. Would love to give some like thoughts here, but maybe if you want to also unmute yourself and maybe share what you have done so far, you know, that you have tried in terms of engagement, and then maybe from there we could give a few thoughts if you're willing to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. So yeah, we have 600 people all around Brussels. So these 600 people live in different houses. We have 82 houses in Brussels, so that's average 8 people per house. And what I've done so far is I host an after work drink every first Friday of each month. So that is a little habit where people can find others from Share Home. And I have connected houses with each other. So one house has been paired with another house to do an activity together. And we have a community app in place, but that is actually the hardest one to bring people on and engage people, because we already have so many apps in our hands. People have WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. So it's adding another app on the list is just really hard, and it's difficult to engage people on there.
Yeah. I have a few questions. Like, are the houses rather like, are they in the same neighborhoods, or they spread across, but basically like you still have on average like a few houses that are close to you, or how does it work?
So there are some hubs where houses are closer to each other, but we do have other houses that are a little bit spread out.
Yeah. And okay, because like the first thought I would have right now would be like, in terms of, because a lot of operators that try, for example, apps, and to be honest, it's just really hard. And I haven't seen a single operator where they have a high retention using apps. So maybe Mayank, you have? I don't know. Like maybe anybody here in this group.
You're right. I agree with you.
So my thought would be like, what I got recently inspired of a lot is like, so there's this idea of like how to create engagement, or how to have residents themselves engage, right? And basically that our role is to become a platform for people to express themselves. One thing I want to share with you is here. I'm gonna put this 1000. I think this is the right website. There's a social club in Lisbon that I joined in January called 1000 Club, and the idea is to bring 500 foreigners and 500 locals. And so the way they did it is they have this WhatsApp group. And now what they do is like when they have onboarding, so when they start getting people into the membership, they have the survey, so they fill out, and then they understand like what people like doing. And then they hit them up, and they're like, for example, if somebody goes running, it's like, hey, do you want to like maybe have other people join your run? And if the person says yes, then it's like, okay, great. It's super simple. You're going to create a WhatsApp group. You put this into we're going to help you promote it into the general one. And people can just sign up if they want to. So for example, one thing you could do is just switch to WhatsApp. You have one where it's just like you guys posting. So there's not a lot of messages. and you just hit up a few members that already do things in their lives, ask them if they want to invite others, and then you share these smaller groups into that, right? So that could be like a simple one, but I'll try to find like a few members that are actively doing things, even maybe you have artists. Yes, Mayank, what are you thinking?
Right. So first of all, yes, on the app thing, even like just an example, right? Nomadgaon started using app and then they got rid of that app and came on WhatsApp for managing their community, and they've now grown their community to about 700 people, right? The one thing that they did very well was finding the top 10% of active people in the community, right? If you find those people and build your community around those active people, the engagement automatically becomes more. And these 10% of the people can be like the top 5% or 10% of the people. Some, as you said, some can be runners, some can be like, it can be running, it can be art, it can be any kind of activity. And then we would create a subgroup within that community and make that particular person an admin and just promote it in the general group, ask people to join that community. And that's how people automatically started communicating with each other, and the engagement became better and better for us. And now they tell us that this event is happening rather than we telling them that what you are doing, right? So that's something that you can try and see if that helps. But finding those first 5, 7, 10 people who really want to do this or who are really passionate about what they're doing, I think is the key here.
I have tonight a meeting with the ones that I think are more with ideas to create events and activities, to try to motivate them a bit and give them some support and tools to create things for the community. So hopefully it will work out.
Great.
Yeah.
All the best.
Yes, and like one approach, like that, for example, when I had a co-living space in Bali, we had this big event space. So like anyone I would meet, literally, I'd just be like, how can this space and the people serve you? Like somebody just wrote a book. Okay, you want to do like a book launch event, right? Somebody's being established as a coach. Why don't you give a coaching session from there you can get clients, right? So like I think there's a lot of ways that we can use the spaces we have in the community. And it's just about like finding the right incentive for the person where they're like, oh, if I do this, I can get fun or visibility or friends or whatever they're looking for.
Yeah. So just to close that, close this whole discussion, right? There is no list of 10 things that you can do to increase engagement, right? That's a wrong way to look at it. Every community is different. Even within the community, the sub communities are very, very different and they behave differently. It's for you to find those underlying patterns within your community by looking at data, by looking at how people have behaved in a certain way, and then build it out accordingly. So it's a very subjective thing. Probably if somebody tells you that I'll give you 10 things that can help you build community, they are fooling you. Like that's what I will end it with.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay. Let's talk about business, because I think we also have to do that. I think, okay, number one question here, and that's been, by the way, if anybody of you has any business related questions, please drop them in the chat right now. I think let's tackle one after another. So one big question has been like, when does it make sense financially to have a co-living? Can a small 12-unit co-living project, for example, be financially attractive? I mean, Mayank, I'm gonna share my thought, but like, from what basically we've discussed, it can be financially attractive, but it depends for what. If it's for like a side income, or if you, for example, have time to spend on that business, and you just want to have, for example, a family business or something like an income that's coming on the side. With 12 units, imagine that you make like $300 margin on each. You can make 3 to 4K a month, and if you reduce taxes, etc., you can have basically at the end between 2 to 3 on your bank account. So that could work. But if you want to automate the business, and if you want to hire somebody that takes care of operations, of welcoming, and etc., then you need usually a higher amount of units, and usually it's around 20 to 30 units per employee. And I think when you reach that angle, or when you reach that amount, then you usually have an easier time to automate the business.
Right. So just one more thing to add there is, see, at a margin level or at a percentage level, I think if you have 12 units, you can even have like a 30% margin on each unit. And you can earn 30% net margins on each unit. But as you grow, because the cost also grows along with this, you can make more money, but your percentage margins will reduce. So you will have to understand it from different perspective, whether you're talking financially attractive from a net margin perspective, or whether you are talking about financially attractive from an overall income perspective, as Guy said, right? So, but definitely a 12 unit co-living project can definitely be very, very attractive, and can be low operations or high operations depending on what kind of business model you want to run it for, right? Also, whether it's a master lease where you are renting it out from someone, or whether it's your own property, makes a whole lot of difference on the financially attractive part of things. So I think that also has to be taken in account.
Totally.
Right. So the next thing is, how can boutique spaces compete with big players? Key, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's very simple. Like they can, and they can mainly because like small boutique spaces can, one, be more higher end. So for example, they can invest into something such as design furniture, or a very specific angle such as health, like a lot of biophilic design, like really creating a unique space. And then the second thing is the attention to detail, right? Like, and especially in boutique places, you can have somebody like a really great community manager that's there. So you can compete really because it's not the same experience. One is small and cozy, and the other one is more residential. And I think with boutique as well, you have an opportunity to do a hybrid between short, medium, and long stay.
Another thing about boutique spaces is the kind of people that they attract is generally a mature audience, like an audience which is probably in top 25% of the income group, and they're a lot more mature. So the kind of community that you will end up building around your boutique space will be much mature, and the cost of customer acquisition will become lower for you. And that's not generally the case with bigger players, right? So even if you're situated right next to a large co-living player, you will end up making actually more money rather than competing with them because of the kind of audience that you will attract. So yeah, I think that there is not really a competition when you say boutique spaces versus big players.
And Mayank, you're the expert here, but what's the usual percentage that a co-living operator charges the owner, and what obligations are associated with it? I think that's also a lot of people asking that, to understand like what type of agreements can they make, and what's their relationship also in that project, right?
Right. So again, it depends on region. It depends on the kind of engagement that the owner want to have. But just take an example, right? The range of percentage is usually from 20 to 25%. When you are taking 25%, owner naturally will expect you to do a lot more, like finding tenants, maintaining the property, as well as making sure that everything is up to date, uh, like an end-to-end management. But when you are just doing like on the lower end, when you are doing 10%, then the obligation can just be to find right tenants and get them into the place, right? Like a tenant find, and not doing maintenance, because owner would want to do that themselves if they have fewer houses. So it depends on the agreement that you have with the owner, but it ranges between 10 to 25% as a standard charge. Now, if you look at, this is about the management model. Now, when you look at the master lease model where you agree on a fixed rent, the maximum that you can make is about 32%, right? So that's like if you go asset heavy and take a master lease, agree on a fixed rental, then you are underwriting all the risks. But the maximum that you can make is 32%, but the risk is also higher, right? Whether you want to go for that or you want to go for management model where a lot of owners agree to do, it can be on the lower side of 10%, where you just make sure that you find right set of tenants for them, and few other things. So that's the range, and that's the kind of obligations that comes with it. One thing that I've seen is in the majority of developing markets, the owner would want to go for a master lease model, But in a lot of developing markets, a lot of developed markets, the owner are okay with um, even the management models, because the demand supply is very different in terms of what kind of demand supply balance is very different in a developing and a developed country. So that's the reason they are the most preferred. I'm not saying that's the norm, but they are more preferred there. So yeah, those are a few things that I wanted to share on this.
Yes. If anybody else has any other question, there's one also from Santiago and tips to lease rooms faster. So that's perfect, because I think it's going to lead us into the next section, which is marketing and tech. Look, also, I'm aware that we only have 5 minutes left. So Mayank, should we try to do sort of like ping pong and just like
Sure.
give like a few of the best practices here?
Right. Let's do that.
All right. Okay. So how do you attract and vet the right customers? I think Mayank, you had like some thoughts before that were pretty good on this one.
Right. So so there are two parts of it, right? One is building your digital presence, but starting off that point, which most people misses, is figuring out what your ideal customer is. What's the ideal customer profile that you want to attract? Writing it down in detail, figuring out that is one of the biggest thing that you would want to do before you start building your digital presence, before you start building your communication strategy or the kind of communication that you want to do, because it will be derived from your ICP or the ideal customer profile that you build. Once that is done, then you build your communication around that, because that communication will itself lead to attracting right set of people. The copywriting that you will do on your website or the social media that you will build will start attracting that sort of people. So that's more about attracting. And then vetting the right customers. I think, Guy, you had some thoughts there, but it's majorly around asking right questions when they're applying to your space.
Yes. Well, about vetting, it's simple. It's about like what is going to be the vetting process. And I think you can include some steps such as questionnaire instead of direct booking. You can have a quick call with the person. By the way, sales on phone works always really well. So these are like steps you can do, and then you can have a very specific script where you can ask certain things. Another thing that works pretty well is when people express their interest, to already ask a few questions that can help you with the decisions. For example, if you're targeting a more mature audience, you can ask, are you a student or professional, right? If you, for example, want to target a specific like financial range, you can also ask people like, what is your ideal rent for the month, right? So these questions can help you to already pre-vet residents, or you can ask even more personal things like, what's your social media profile, right? And then from there, like choose the ones you most resonate with. So that leads also to, how do we market to tenants before construction ends, right? Like, I think it's super important to start marketing beforehand, launch your brands, position yourself, create your first diehard fans, create your first interest. So there's a bunch of ways to do it. I'm going to show one example real quick. Yeah. So one of the most recent really cool projects has been by Node, which is Coliving, and a co-living operator. They're opening 2 huge buildings of like 800 residents each. And so they're creating something called a creators residency. And the idea is that if you're a talented individual, for example, you're a great tennis player or a great artist, a thought leader with a book, a business entrepreneur, then you can come and live at Node, host a few events, and in exchange, you get like a big discount on your rent, you get additional visibility through the program. It's kind of like helping you to also kickstart your journey. So, and these are ways, like they're going to open in 12 months, but they started the communication now to already start building that community and the first people interested, and then hosting webinars with the people that are interested and building up to the moment they open.
Right. So that's one way of doing it. Another very interesting way of doing it is basically building up your digital. So what people generally do is they think that, okay, let me finish the space and then I will start marketing. Marketing should start right at the point where you start thinking about building up a space, because whether it's SEO, whether it's building out a conversion funnel, it all takes time. You need a lot of experimentation, hosting few events, becoming part of right community, talking about your project in the right forums, having a backing of a strong digital presence will always help you build a lot of euphoria around your project, and the time to fill that project will consistently reduce, right? So those are the few things we can probably go in detail later, or you can reach out to us if you want to talk about this in detail. But there are a lot of things that we can do even before the project starts, to start building the brand and to start attract the right set of people. I'll jump right on to the next question, Guy. What is an all-round PMS software for large co-living buildings? This is probably it was one of the most asked question for today. Out of about 150 people that registered, like more than 20-25 people asked around PMS, right? So you need to understand there are two types of PMS currently that exist in the market. One is which are traditional PMSs, which have been there for last 10-15 years, and they have retrofitted themselves to become relevant for co-living audience, right? Like an AppFolios and Real Pages and Yardies of the world, right? That's one. The second is the new age property management softwares that have developed in the last decade, which are like Coliv HQ, Res Harmonics, and the likes of those, right? And these property management softwares have been built specifically for co-living audience, right? And there are a bunch more, and every property management softwares specifically is built for certain business models. So some can be great for long stays, some can be great for short stays of co-livings, right? So it also depends on what kind of business model that you're operating in, will define what kind of PMS or the property management software will fit your requirement, right? So I've named a few of them, but I think Lavanda is another one, which is very interesting as a product, up and coming product for the co-living spaces, right? So I think that's the kind of that's the length and breadth, and it all depends on what your objectives are, what your business model is, how your operations are structured, in order to define which property management softwares will probably fit the best for you, right? So I will leave this question here, and I'll jump right next. Guy, you can. Okay, I'll also take the next. What percentage of monthly rent is designated to lead generation and booking platforms? Short answer: if you are owning the property, up to 25%. If you don't own the property and you rent it from somebody else, then less than 10%, right? I can tell you the math behind it, but that's the ideal number that you're looking for to start generating leads and converting people for your co-living space. And I'll leave the last one to Yugi. How to market your co-living to students and young professionals?
Well, I think for this one, the most essential factors that I've seen. So you have two options. Option number one is being super straightforward. And here I'm going to share the website of Habit, which is like one of the largest co-living providers. And here, like the way to attract is simply to tell people you got a space to live, right? So really, it's around accessibility, and it's about the fact that you can simply find your home and with a few clicks, like book it. But truly, I think what matters is more authenticity, and what people, especially young people, really want is authenticity in your marketing. So, for example, if you look at Urban Campus, there's a lot of like pictures that have been taken also like by the people who live there, etc. So that would be the number one thing that I would say is important.
Another thing is student probably want to stay near the campus, so the location becomes very, very important. And also they are new, like students mostly come from other parts of the world or other parts of the country. They would want to have a great community, right? So if they get access to great community, the space is closer and it's affordable. Those are the three major factors for student to decide which project or which space they want to go to, right? So I think those are the most essential factors according to me. And I've seen this up front, because we have worked with some of the largest student living brand marketplaces in UK, and this is what has come out of like thousands and thousands of queries. So I think that's the best way. Like that, those are the top three.
Yes. And like, Ayan just mentioned community events, and events will be super important for students. And I agree, because I think like the younger you are, the more experiential you are, right? So especially students or people who just like finish study years, you're still in this mindset, or you still have the time to understand or like to figure out who you want to be, right? So you're open to going to a lot of new things. And I think after a while, you become more intentional about your experience. You want to choose it more. So it becomes less about like entertainment, and it becomes more really about aligning my life with who I want to be. So I think that especially for students, also having a lot of like entertainment events, and and activities that they can go to is important.
So guys, we'll take 2 more minutes of yours for some final words. Let's go, Gee.
Well, final words. A couple of things. First of all, thank you for attending today, and thanks for your comments. Also, we really appreciate it, and we really hope this helped you. We'd love to help you more, so feel free to write us an email. If any questions we couldn't tackle today. Would love to also have your input. We mentioned a bunch of initiatives. Just for those who weren't here at the beginning, we can mention them really quickly again, but would love to have your input if you have any improvements, for example, on our newsletter. If you also have questions about the program we're creating, like, please let us know what you need and how we can make also your world easier. And yeah, really excited for next year. I think this year was really cool. I'm really happy to, Mayank and I have been hosting these webinars now for like a couple of months with you, and it's been beautiful to see this community growing. So thank you so much. It was an amazing year, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. Mayank, what would you
Thanks a
add?
lot, guys. Yeah, just thanks, and thanks for coming here, supporting us, always with your kind words. Any way we can help you guys, feel free to reach out, book a call with us from Art of Co's website. You can always find us there. And the 2 new programs, the Accelerator and Incubator, would love your thoughts, would love your feedback on that. And do subscribe to our newsletter, where we keep sharing a lot of interesting insights. We are also going to add a section in the newsletter from the next one, where we talk about at least 1 or 2 questions which were part of the 100 questions that we got today. I know we didn't touch all of them today, so we will pick up at least one of them and talk about it in every newsletter that comes from here. So that adds a little bit more value to that. So thanks a lot, everyone, for coming here, and see you guys in the next one.
Yes. Thank you. Have a great end of the year. And of course, as always, with some juicy beats. See you next time.